Afternoon, ladies. Welcome to another WOW series on how to be a godly woman. And my prayer for you is that a foundation is laid so that we all can learn and grow to be that godly woman that God has desired for us to be from the moment that we were created, and that we can all have a heart like God, after God's own heart. We've been discussing, like I said, what it means to be a godly woman. And today, and moving forward, unless God decides in the meantime to switch things up, the plan is to be discussing specific women of the Bible and the characteristics that we should follow and the things that we can learn from these women. And today, we are going to be discussing Mark 5, verse 24 through 34. And we are going to be discussing a woman that is so powerful, yet she doesn't even have a specific name in the Bible, where she is also so important that she is acknowledged in 3 of the Gospels. So like I said, it is Mark 5:21 through 34. And I'm going to read it. It says, Jesus got into the boat again and went back to the other side of the lake, where a large crowd gathered around him on the shore. Then a leader of the local synagogue, whose name was Jairus, arrived. When he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet, pleading fervently with him. My little daughter is dying, he said. Please come and lay your hands on her. Heal her so she can live. Jesus went with him, and all the people followed, crowding around him. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years she had spent everything she had to pay them, but she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. She had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd, touched his robe. For she thought to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed. Immediately the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body that she had been healed of a terrible condition. Jesus realized at once that the healing power had gone out from him. So he turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my robe? His disciples said to him, look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you ask who touched me? But he kept on looking around to see who had done it. Then the frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace, your suffering is over. There is so much to be digest here. And I'm going to try to break it down. First, it says that this woman had suffered for 12 years. 12 years. Us as women know that kind of suffering, to be on our menstrual cycle for 3, 5, 7 days, whatever it may look like for you, where we have the emotional, we have the emotional breakouts, the cravings that we may have, the things where things just don't make sense, but you want to cry anyway. So all of that on top of the bleeding for 12 years. And it goes even deeper than that, because in biblical times, there was rules that when you were on your period, that you were to be isolated. And that you will find in Leviticus 15, starting at 19. It says, whenever a woman has her menstrual period, she will be ceremonially unclean for 7 days. Anyone who touches her during that time, will be unclean until evening. Anyone or anything on which the woman lies or sits during that time of her period will be unclean. If any of you touch her bed, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water. and you will remain unclean until evening. If you touch any objects she has sat on, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. This includes her bed or any other object she has sat on. You'll be unclean until evening if you touch it. If a man has sexual intercourse with her and her blood touches him, her menstrual impurity will be transmitted to him. He will remain unclean for 7 days, and any bed on which she lies will be unclean. If a woman has a flow of blood for many days that is unrelated to her menstrual period, or if the blood continues beyond the normal period, she is ceremonially unclean. And during her menstrual period, the woman will be unclean as long as the discharge continues. Any bed she lies on and any object she sits on during that time will be unclean, just as during her normal menstrual period. If any of you touch these things, you will be ceremonially unclean. You must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. And they're constantly talking about how a woman during her menstrual period is unclean. And anybody that touches her or any object that touches her, you too are now unclean. When the woman's bleeding stops, she must count off 7 days. Then she'll be ceremonially clean. On the 8th day, she must bring, she's talking about the sacrifice. And then you go down to verse 31. This is how you will guard the people of Israel from ceremonial uncleanliness. Otherwise, they would die, for their impurity would defile my tabernacle that stands among them. So there's a lot of detail. And so this woman, for 12 years, not only dealt with the hormones, the emotions, and everything that comes with our period for 12 years. But the moment she heard about Jesus, she decided to literally push through the crowd. But if you think that for 12 years she was suffering, but we can't even at times stand firm for 12 hours. So digest that for a moment. That is something to recognize with this woman. And it says that she has suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years she has spent everything she had to pay them, but she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. So not only is she dealing with the hormones, not only is she dealing with isolation, which also means that she was not able to worship, she was not able to fellowship. If you ask me, if I miss a Wednesday or I miss a Sunday, let alone both, like I feel like I've missed a month. That's how much it is important to me. But here she is, she can't do any of that, and she hasn't been able to do that for 12 years because of the rules and how it was unclean, and nobody wanted to touch her because then that would make them unclean, and it was just the big ordeal. So it was almost like she was shunned. She wasn't allowed to be a part. Now she's also broke. And I don't know if any of you, I do actually know that some of you have been in this position. I've been in this position where you've gone to doctors and it's almost like you are their guinea pig. And then at the end of the day, you still don't have any answers. So you're spending your money, you're a guinea pig, nothing's working. Your hope has become lost at this point. Yeah. Like dead end after dead end. But once hearing about Jesus, that's all she needed to move forward. Her logic was to get as close to Jesus as possible. Where there was Jesus, she knew that where there was Jesus, there would be healing. And when I was doing this study, I came across of this woman. I came across this quote that I couldn't pass up to share with you ladies. And it says, through his power, Jesus's power, was the source of her healing, but her faith activated her cure. How powerful is that? Jesus is the source of all healing, of all deliverance, of all redemption. But without our faith, there is no activation. I thought that was extremely extremely powerful, that the faith of this woman was so big, it caused her to receive that healing. I want to go to verse 34, and Jesus said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over." Note here, and it's extremely important, that though the world saw her as unclean, though the world saw her as unholy, and there's a lot of times in the Bible where when people experience blindness or leprosy or anything like that, they automatically assumed your sin has caused you to be this way. So there was a lot of emotional damage that she has suffered and went through for 12 years. But Jesus didn't humiliate her, and instead called her daughter. Daughter, your faith has made you well. Now go in peace. Your suffering is now over. I believe here that we can take from her the boldness, the courage to just disregard those laws in that moment, to push forward into faith, taking a big risk to be touching all of those people in such a crowd, to take a risk to let alone just to grab onto Jesus, who is holy and pure and the purest, the holiest, to just receive her healing. I'm just looking at my notes, and it says in verse 29 in the King James Version, I believe it explained it as a fountain of blood. So it wasn't just like, spotting here and there. Like, they refer to it as fountain of blood. And it's also important to note here that there's going to be a lot of times where we look to man for help, like she did, and we're going to be let down. Dead end after dead end after dead end. Like I said, the whole guinea pig analogy that I used. But she was persistent in her faith, knowing that the only one at this point can heal her is Jesus. A lot of times I think that we can stop our suffering, thank you God, stop our suffering a lot sooner if that instead of just automatically going to man, that we go to the ultimate source that we should be going to first is Jesus. A lot of times we can end our suffering a lot quicker if we go to him first instead of relying on our flesh and what we can see, which is man. So I encourage you today to push through, to stand firm like this woman did in her faith, to have such a strong faith that you know that if you just go to the source, Jesus Christ, that he will heal you. But again, you have to have that faith to activate the healing or the deliverance or whatever it is, your provisions that you may need in this moment. And regardless of how long you've been suffering, to have the faith that Jesus can heal you. And even if you're not in a place of suffering right now, remember this woman, and knowing that she has laid down this example before us to know what we should do and how we should act moving forward when we're in such a situation, to be bold, to have strong faith that you're Jesus, even if it's the bottom of his robe and that's all you can touch right now, that there's healing. Go to him. Push through the crowd. Push through the circumstances that you're going through. Yeah. And there's a lot of Bible verses that Jesus has spoke, that faith has healed you. Faith has saved you. To go in peace. in that faith, there has become healing, whether it is the blind, whether it was the a simple woman, whether it was a man of leprosy, to just hold on to that faith like this woman has. Verse 1, real quick, to backpedal real quick. And over there, she's suffered a great deal. Again, I just can't express enough the suffering that this woman could have gone through. Even like I said, she had suffered a great deal from many doctors. Um, Other verses say suffered many things of many physicians, meaning that sometimes when you go to a doctor, it's not just the mental that you deal with. You got to get the blood drawn. This time you got to get the blood drawn again. That time, not, I don't know the practices, but knowing that it says she suffered many things, for them to try to figure out exactly what she was going through. There was a lot of tests that she had to undergo, which I'm sure is not easy to go through all of those tests. So, but her faith is the very thing that healed her. Her faith in Jesus, knowing that who Jesus was and what he was capable of doing. And again, she went through this for 12 years, but a lot of times we're ready to give up after 12 hours, after a couple of days. But she kept persevering. She kept pushing through, physically and spiritually. She kept pushing through. So continue to push through. Remember this lady in your times of troubles, and when you're struggling with your faith. Remember that if she can do it, so can you. All right, let's try to get on around 5:30. I know you guys have your own lives and you might be busy around that time, and if you can't get on at 5:30, come on when you can. Include your input. I know that this goes a lot deeper than even what I am capable of seeing. So if you have your input, please add to it, because I want to learn with you guys. I want to be able to see what it is that God is showing you as well. So around 5:30, come into the chat and tell me what you think. Do not leave me hanging. I cannot wait to be in the building with you guys. Cannot wait to start having WOW back in the church building. Is probably looking like September. So a little bit longer. But in the meantime, again, I can't see your faces. I can't call on you. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what you got from this. Let me know what stuck out to you, or when you were listening or reading for yourself, did God speak something to you? And if so, please share it. All right, well, everybody have a blessed day. Next time, unless God says different, we'll be discussing another woman of the Bible and her contributions. All right, have a great day.